Let's bring her on. Lita Ford. Lita, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
That is great. We've got a little applause for you there. That is for you.
All right.
It is so great to speak with you. 2016 is, it seems like it's going to be one hell of a busy year for you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh my God, I'm looking at my schedule and I'm tired just looking at it. But I couldn't wish for anything better.
I've got to mention you've got a brand new book that's about to hit the stores, and you've got a brand new record that is about to come out in April. And of course you're promoting the book. You're going to be doing a tour of just a promotion for the book, and then of course you got a whole April is all booked, playing. What? I guess first let's talk about the book. Let's talk about the album Time Capsule.
Okay.
And it is basically a record, as the title serves. It is a time capsule of all of these tracks that you've had. Tell us how this record came about and why you decided to go into the vaults and dig and pull out some of these great gems you got.
I wanted to give the fans who loved the 80s and those fans that missed the 80s, that are too young to have been living through the 80s and going to rock concerts, something from the 80s. So the Time Capsule is a moment in the 80s that I spent in the recording studio recording these amazing tracks. There's special guests on the album.
Right.
Robin Zander, Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Of course.
We've got Gene Simmons is playing bass on one track, and then we've got Billy Sheehan on the others. We've got Jeff Scott Soto singing a duet with me that is just insane. It's so good. Dave Navarro is playing mandolin.
Wow.
If you can believe that.
I can't.
Awesome. It's just a godsend of a gift to the fans.
And I had heard this story that it was one of those scenarios where you had the tape and you had to actually bake the tape, do one of those processes before you could actually get back into it. How was that process? I mean, just digging through this stuff. Was there any kind of something that you listened to and it just spawned all these memories? Obviously, because you haven't heard maybe some of this stuff in a long while.
Yeah, I did. I was worried that the tapes were going to flake because they're analog tapes.
Sure.
I was afraid over a period of time they dry out. So when you put them on a tape player, they flake off. They just come apart,
right.
Fall apart. So if you bake them at a certain temperature in this machine they have, it kind of glues it all together. So it doesn't come apart
right.
when you transfer it from analog to digital. And I was freaking out. I was thinking, oh, my God, I'm going to lose everything once that tape player starts rolling.
Right.
But it didn't. It stayed together after we baked it, and we transferred it to digital. We did not change anything on the tracks. Nothing has been changed.
Wow.
No, all the notes are the same, the vocal notes. If there's anything out of tune or out of key or wrong, it's all in there. There's laughing, and there's such a light, happy sense and a vibe that you get from these tracks because they were recorded on my time
right.
and under my own fun and circumstances, not the suit and ties behind this, okay, we need this album done by December the 1st, and if it's not turned in with 3 hits on it, then it's not going to be released. Right. I didn't have any of that. It was just pure fun.
It was, doing a record like this, this is basically the first time maybe you gone back into, tracks that you recorded years ago. Was this the first time you kind of did this sort of rock and roll archaeology?
It is. I've never done this before. Yeah, it is the first time. And these tracks are just really, they really need to be heard because they're so good. They're just stupid good.
Right.
And we did a beautiful layout with a 12-page booklet of photographs from the 80s, and different stuff on the album cover. They did it in vinyl, the record company that's releasing it on SPV Records. They did it in a cobalt blue vinyl record.
Wow.
So for those who do collect vinyl, we'll have it released on vinyl as well.
I mean, it's such a treat for fans, and that the record Time Capsule comes out April 15th. Are you going to be performing some of the tracks that are on this record during the tour, the tour that's coming up?
We've got to. They're so good. I just can't see us not doing it.
Right. That's great. And hopefully, maybe we'll see some guest spots from some of the fabulous guests that are on the record. Hopefully, on the road. I mean, that'd be a great surprise.
Yes, definitely.
Let's talk about the book. Now, the book is already in the headlines. People are already talking about it. It's a thing that's, it's been in the making for a while. And I'd heard about this book. You started working on it back in like 2013 or something.
Yes.
How has the process been kind of going back and looking at these stories that you wanted to include in this book? Tell us a little bit about this journey.
Well, I had a tough time at first because I was trying to find the right co-author to work with me on this book. And because I feel like I've lived 3 lifetimes, starting from being a teenager in the Runaways up until today, I feel like I've been through 3 or 4 different lifetimes, and I wanted it to be everything that I'd hoped it to be, or I didn't want to release it. And the authors that I was working with were not getting it. They weren't capturing my voicing, and I wasn't going to have it. So I had to find somebody else to capture my voicing, and then they didn't get it. And I had to find somebody else, and it's like, this book is not coming out unless I can get it right, because there's so much that went on. There's so many exciting things in this book that you just can't put it down. So finally I was able to get it together and find this cool rock and roll guitar playing Italian chick from Canada, and she, like, whoa, she knew everything about me and more.
Wow. And
she was great. So I just basically used her to help me put together what I had already written.
Sure.
So it came together beautifully. We did a great photo session, so it's got some really nice artwork in it, as well as the chronological order of the stories. It starts out when I was 16.
Right.
My 16th birthday party. And it talks a little bit about my upbringing, but it's basically all rock and roll.
That's great. And I'd read in the press release, you were quoted as saying that the book was a bit of a fight for you. Was that? How did you mean that in terms of the going through these processes of your life, or literally just getting it to print?
Yeah, it was a fight because I couldn't find the right co-author.
Right.
I couldn't get. It needed to be right. It needed to be correct. People were putting the wrong names, like Black Sabbath. They would put Richie Blackmore in Black Sabbath. No, you can't do that. People are going to think I'm out of my mind.
Right.
They're putting Tony Iommi in Deep Purple. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You don't know anything about rock and roll. You need to go away.
Right.
So I just kept fighting and fighting and fighting for the book, to save the book and make it everything that I'd hoped it to be. And I had the support of HarperCollins behind me. They believed in me 100%.
That's great.
And that's what kept me going and kept me alive. And, of course, I would never let down my fans. Doing a book like this, you gotta, you're looking inward. You're looking at your life, and you've got a lot of things you want to touch up on, and you obviously want to get your voice across. It was the stories
that you were like, you know what, I don't know if if I'm ready to put this in the book, or you know, how did you decide what to keep in the book and what to say not put in the book?
Well, I don't want to. I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Sure.
Although I did go to some far out places. You know, was he married at the time, or was he not married at the time?
Right.
You know, and is he still married to that same person at the time? You know,
of
right
course.
now. So, you know, you do take in consideration people's lives, and I don't want to destroy anybody's life with things that we did before they even met. You know, so I just wanted to be careful and not slander or have any sort of defamation in the book.
You know, there's I was going to say that there's a story that is. It's already hitting the press, talking about the revelations regarding Tony Iommi that you mentioned in the book, and I guess you were quoted as saying that you would later find out that looks were deceiving in description of Tony Iommi. What can you tell us, I guess, that is in the book that about this relationship, because it seems like a very touchy kind of topic?
Well, Tony Iommi was my idol, him and Richie Blackmore. When I was growing up, the first concert I ever saw was Black Sabbath.
Wow.
When I was 13. And Tony Iommi was just like a god in my eyes. You know, he was a hero to me, and still is. Even though you have to read the book, but he was abusive, and that almost killed me, literally. And I didn't expect that from my superhero.
Right.
You know, when your superhero turns around and is not the person that you'd hoped him to be, he becomes hurting you and just being abusive. It's like, wow. I mean, if you go up to Spider-Man and say, "Oh, I love you, Spider-Man. You know, I think you're the best thing. I love how you crawl upside down on the walls, and I just want to be you, and I wish I could do that, and I wish I could be like you." And then if he turns around and hits you in the mouth, you're going to go, "Whoa.
Right.
That's not the Spider-Man I thought you were." You know?
I mean, that must be shocking. Were you nervous or concerned about putting that in your book and having attention being brought to that? I guess for those who are fans of Tony Iommi and that kind of thing. What was your thoughts on that? I guess when you decided to put that in there.
Well, if they read the entire story, they'll see that I don't have any hard feelings, and Tony will always be a superhero in my mind.
Right.
And he will always be that guitar-playing god. That's how I want to remember him, because I don't have to live with him and I don't have to see him anymore. I know what kind of person he is, musically and personally. And the personal side never has to exist again. So I will remember him for his great riffs and his great music.
That's great. I mean, I mean, obviously, a powerful influence in the rock and roll community. There's stories, I guess, after you had left Tony Iommi, there's stories of you going and meeting up with Nikki Sixx. And did I get this right? But did Nikki Sixx, he offered you heroin after you're running with Tony? Is that right?
Yeah, well, he wanted to make me feel better.
Wow.
He wanted to take the pain away, because I was, well, if you read the book, I had been beat up, and I was hurting. And at the time, Nikki was my friend.
Sure.
And we had been dating, and we'd broke up but we remained friends, Nikki and I. And I didn't want to upset my mother and father, because they loved Tony too, and they also loved Nikki. But at the time, Nikki was very young. And then we're talking early 80s.
Sure.
This is like 1982. And Nikki was into heroin. And unfortunately, I wasn't. Unfortunately, Nikki was. And he went and got something to make me feel better. And it worked.
And at least,
better.
And who knew years later he'd come out with a record called Dr. Feelgood? Who knew? But,
yeah. Well, everybody knows Nikki's story, so
of course.
Nothing. That's nothing new.
But I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned, you talked about your parents in this. Your parents were a huge part of your life and your influence. And did you? I haven't got to read the book yet, and I'm looking forward to when it's released. But did you touch up on your relationship with your parents as you were becoming and had become this larger than life figure in the media?
My father passed away with brain cancer when I got my very first gold album.
Wow, that is tragic.
It was Kiss Me Deadly was released. It was top 10 in the charts. And as I'm getting this fame, he was getting brain cancer. And he was slipped into a coma. And 3 months went by, he was dead. And then I was given this beautiful award for Kiss Me Deadly. So it was bittersweet.
Right.
And he never got to see it. Unfortunately, I think he knew anyway, because he was always with me. He was always, he would go partying with me. We would go to clubs together. He would bring a 6-pack of beer to all my shows, hang out with all my friends.
Right.
And he was my biggest fan. And I think he knew in his heart that it would amount to something. It took me 12 years to get my first gold album. And that's when he passed away, unfortunately. But my mother was there, and she saw everything. And she said to me, I wish your father was here to see this. And he was looking over us, and I think they still are.
Sure.
I think they're still looking over me, because so many amazing things have happened and are happening. And I think that maybe it's their doing.
Right. I mean, it's such a, and it's always troubling when you achieving this success, and you don't have the ones that are close to you there, to go with you on that in the physical world. And I mean, it's got to be a difficult thing. And what's amazing too is that you did have the career with the Runaways, and starting that off at such a young period in your life. And and I know a story that may be in the book regarding hanging out with both Robert Plant and Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin early on. What was that? What was that like growing up? Playing guitar in your bedroom, learning Zeppelin riffs, and then there you are a couple years later. You're actually hanging out with these rock gods. Yeah,
it was. I don't know. It wasn't really surreal, because in a way I saw my future.
Right.
And I think a lot of people do see their future, are able to. Maybe some people don't. I know some people don't, because I've had people ask me, Lita, what is my destiny? They say, why am I here on this earth? And I know why I'm here. I've got the gift. Somebody's high above has shown me my path, and they show me the light at the end of the tunnel. And it doesn't surprise me that this has happened, because it was meant to be. But I still feel like it was a gift from God. Again, I don't know. I'm not a religious person anyway. Rock and roll is my religion.
Of course.
But I do believe that these are gifts from God, and someone like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page coming to shows like that, meeting Tony Iommi or meeting Edward Van Halen or any of these people, or having to grow up with them in the music industry in the streets of Hollywood. It's just... And being the only female that really... And not just female, but at the time I was a little girl.
Right.
I wasn't a woman. I was still a little girl when I started. So some people are saying, well, there were other girls before. There were other females before the Runaways. But there weren't any girls that were making it in rock bands. They might have been older ladies, but they weren't young girls. So there's the difference.
Right.
We were teenage jailbait, rock and roll, punk, rebellious troublemakers, and we lived up to our reputation,
Of course.
So, of course, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page are going to want to come and check it out. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, is there any truth to the story about Robert Plant casually asking you to play bass?
He did.
What? How does that? That must blow your mind. You're sitting there, you're hanging out with Robert Plant. And he's like, play bass.
Well, he asked me. He said, "You don't play bass, do you?" And I do, but I don't. It's not my number one instrument.
Sure.
I can play bass, of course, and I always have been able to play bass. As a matter of fact, when I auditioned for the Runaways, they thought I was a bass player because I had just done a show with a local band where I lived with my parents when I was a teenager, and I had played bass for that show.
Right.
So when the word first came out that there was a girl who played the string instrument, they all thought I was a bass player. When Kim Fowley called me and said, "Do you want to join this band? I hear you play bass." I'm like, no. Why does everybody think I play bass? I don't play bass. I play guitar. But Robert Plant said, "You don't play bass, do you?" I went, "What? For who? Are you kidding me?" First of all, here I am, maybe 17.
Sure.
And am I going to go to England and play bass for Led Zeppelin? I never looked at it that way.
Right.
I just took it as a compliment and thanked him, and that was it.
Of course. I mean, had you have played with Led Zeppelin, the whole In Through the Outdoor record would have been way different. I could only imagine. But
yeah, right. That would have been awesome.
Exactly.
I love John Paul Jones, and his bass playing is one of my favorites.
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah, you can't even. He's one of the greats. But talking about the book, and there's so many stories. What did you feel that you got everything that you wanted when you set out to write the book? Did you feel like you were able to get everything in the book when it was finished?
I had to. Or it wasn't going to come out.
Right.
There was no way I was going to release a half-assed book. I don't get into certain details about my marriage.
Right.
That's another story. I'm saving that for a major motion film. So I talk about my children. I talk about my relationship. I talk about my relationship with my kids and having to homeschool them and growing up on this island with my kids. And I leave it at that and leave the dirt and the crap that would have taken up more than the entire book.
Right.
Because there's so much of it. I just couldn't get into it, and I didn't want to do that and put it in print. But just for the sake of my children, and they don't need to be reading that crap about their father.
Right.
So one day it'll come out in a film under somebody else's name.
Right.
you know, and somebody else's character.
You know, it's interesting because, I mean, obviously you've been through a lot of, you know, ups and downs and a lot of, you know, personal kind of hard emotional triumphs and tribulations. How do you, you know, and this might sound like an easy or trite question, but how do you stay kind of positive and grounded throughout all of these ups and downs?
I try really hard to surround myself with a positive team of people. And my band, my management, my attorneys, my business managers, they're all great, happy, ridiculously wonderful people. And I see them every day. I talk to them all the time. I work as much as I possibly can to keep my mind in a positive place. You know, I just try and stay that way. The holidays are hard because I don't have my children.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's not because of something I did. It's something that the legal department does in our country, and in actually not just our country, but many other countries as well, which is a crime, and talks about that in the book as well. Parental alienation.
Right, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started a group specifically for that. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, if you go to Lita Ford's Parental Alienation Awareness Facebook, excuse me, it is a form of child abuse, but it's not a physical child abuse. It's more of a mental child abuse. For instance, the father will say to the mother, the father will say to the children, "Your mother doesn't want you. She doesn't love you anymore. She wants to go play rock and roll. She doesn't want to be with you anymore." And here you are talking to a 9-year-old child.
Right.
It's devastating. It is life-altering. Scars that will never, ever go away. It's abuse.
Right.
And then you take it to the legal department and say to the attorneys who throw fuel onto the fire and make it worse, because they know that you will pay any amount of money to help your child. You will sell your house if you have to. You'll sell your cars to pay off that attorney. And they take all your money, and you are left with nothing, not even your children. You don't get them back.
Wow.
So you have to wait until the child figures it out and says, "Daddy's been lying to us," or "Mommy's been lying to us," whoever does the alienating.
Right.
You know, it goes both ways. It's not just fathers, it's mothers that do it too. I don't want people to think that I'm one-sided on this, because this goes both ways.
Right.
Mothers can be just as evil as fathers. And I think that mental child abuse is probably more devastating than a broken arm. I'd rather have a broken arm than be abused verbally by my mother or my father.
Right, and it's kind of a tale you hear very often, you know, with parents who separate with children, and the children become kind of part of like a bartering tool or a, you know, leverage kind of thing, and also, you know, I mean, you're talking about, I don't know the phrase, maybe brainwashing or programming in a sense. It sounds like such a hurtful kind of experience to be in. Did you ever think, years ago, before you'd had kids, that you'd be facing these sort of challenges as an older adult? You know,
I never knew what it was. I never knew it existed. And I never thought our legal system, our family courts, were so corrupt.
Right.
I always thought they were the good guys. And I don't know, I guess that comes from growing up with good parents and them telling me the truth and being happy and truly in love. I never knew that evil side really existed. You know, you see it on TV,
sure,
and you think, wow, what a movie. What if it was true? Well, it is true. And to me, that's evil. Evil is not something that hides in your closet and lives under your bed and goes bump in the night. Evil is parental alienation and mental child abuse. It's evil. It's the worst form of evil I could think of. More people commit suicide over it. There are more deaths than any other type of divorce. You can Google it and check it out. It is a form of brainwashing, and it is a form of kidnapping.
Wow.
The only difference is there's a piece of paper that says that one of the parent has custody of the kids.
Right.
And the way that person gets that piece of paper is they're the one that paid the attorney the most money. That's it.
Right. It's incredible. I mean, and with this organization, you are, I assume you're sharing this information with others and helping other people who have gone through this or are going through this kind of cope and deal. Is that, how is that to help other people with this information? It must feel a little bit of a small reward knowing what you've gone through. I
think that it needs to come out of the closet, just like homosexuality.
Right.
There was a point where you couldn't tell anybody if you were gay. Now it's out of the closet. Now everyone knows it's okay to be a homosexual. It's all right. It came out of the closet. The Amber Alert. That was something that was created that was huge.
Right.
Not to put the two in the same category, but just things that need to come out of the closet. Child abuse needs to come out of the closet, and how corrupt our legal system is needs to come out of the closet. And I have a voice. I can talk to magazines. I can talk to television talk shows. I can tell people about this, and I'll be damned, I'm going to do it. If it helps people, if it helps children, if it helps families, then I will do it. And if it helps our court system to calm down and not rip people off, I'm going to do it.
It's you know what, I have to commend you on that. It's very courageous and very, it's a brave thing because in a sense, recognizing a flaw in the court system and being able to be strong enough to stand up and voice, you've got a big voice, and being able to use it for something like that is just, it's commendable. It's absolutely a great thing. And, and obviously, hopefully, You've spoken about it. Your book might actually point in that direction, but it seems like you're able in 2016 to kind of put these things together and move forward. Is 2016? Are you looking at this year as a launching pad for Lita Ford? With this book, with the new record, obviously the tour. What can you expect coming? From all of this in 2016. What can we look forward to?
Well, we've been offered the Hailstorm tour, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
We'll be out April 1st. It starts, so we'll be out with Lizzie and the guys.
Right.
That's going to be awesome. And, of course, Hailstorm, I don't know if they would be around without the Runaways or without Lita Ford. So I'm honored to be on that tour. I think it's going to be a great year. The book is huge. It's huge. There's so much in that book. And I think that's why it was such a fight to get out.
Right.
The Time Capsule album has songs on it that are absolutely... It was almost like they were written for this decade, for this year. Because when I listen to the lyrics, where will I find my heart tonight when all I see around me is a lie? You know, it feels like I wrote the album prematurely,
right,
to release it in 2016. It's just bizarre, but it falls into 2016 category. It needs to be released now.
It's like you wrote it for your future self, in a sense. And it's great. I do want to say, you know, it's such a thrill. I'm looking forward to both the record and reading the book. I'm excited to read it. It is. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of great, obviously revelations, great stories, and probably learn a lot about some of these, you know, amazing musicians that you've crossed paths with and performed with. Lita Ford, I want to thank you for sharing your morning with us, taking the time and being so humble and being so nice and just, you know, honest with us and sharing. It's just you know, absolute a gift, and I want to wish you the very best for this year and for your tour. And I know you're gonna be coming in town here in San Francisco. You're gonna be doing a book promotion, book signing on February 28th here in San Francisco, and of course you're gonna do a whole other bunch of cities, Los Angeles, of course, Denver, Austin, and all around. And then of course in April you're gonna be on the road with Hailstorm. It's going to be incredible, and I just want to thank you once again for being on the program, and thank you. You got it, Lita. Thank you so much, and all the best, and hopefully we'll get you on after the tour winds down, and we'll talk again.
You'll have to pick me up with a spoon.
I can't wait. I'll do it. I'll make sure the spoon is tuned up.
All right, Eddie.
All right, Lita. Take care. Thank you so much.
God bless.
You too. There it is. The one, the only, Lita Ford.